When I purchased the Freedom Factory, my goal was to make it the world's most awesome multi-use facility.
One text message. That's all it took to change everything. December 18th, 2024, started like any other day for Garrett Mitchell, the YouTube sensation better known as Cleetus McFarland. He was waiting at his Florida home, excited to spend the afternoon with friends who'd become family. But at 10:15 that morning, a phone started buzzing with an emergency alert. Then, silence. Within hours, the racing world would lose a legend, and Mitchell would lose the one person who believed he could make it to NASCAR's biggest stage. What happened next nearly ended his racing career before it truly began. The Cessna Citation took off from Statesville Regional Airport in North Carolina just after 10 in the morning. On board were 7 people, including NASCAR champion Greg Biffle, his wife Christina, and their 2 kids. They were heading to Florida specifically to visit Mitchell and exchange Christmas gifts they'd been planning for months. But 10 minutes into the flight, something went catastrophically wrong. Christina grabbed her phone and sent a frantic message to her mother. 3 words that would haunt everyone who read them. "We're in trouble." Minutes later, the plane attempted an emergency return to the airport. Witnesses on a nearby golf course watched in horror as the aircraft came in too low, clipping trees and approach lights before erupting into a massive fireball just short of the runway. All 7 souls on board were gone instantly. Mitchell was one of the first to know. He took to Facebook, his hands shaking as he typed the words nobody wanted to read. Greg Biffle, the man who'd become his mentor, his friend, his brother in every way that mattered, was never coming. Greg Biffle wasn't just another NASCAR driver. At 55, he'd built a legacy that few could match. Championships in both the Truck Series and Xfinity Series. 19 Cup Series wins. Named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers. But those stats only told half the story. After Hurricane Helene tore through western North Carolina in September 2024, Biffle didn't just write a check and move on. He climbed into his helicopter and flew mission after mission into devastated mountain communities that nobody else could reach. Supplies, medical equipment, even baby formula for desperate families cut off from the world. He spotted survivors using mirrors to flash signals from remote locations. He didn't stop until everyone was safe. For that work, NASCAR honored him with the Myers Brothers Award, recognizing his humanitarian efforts. But Biffle never cared about awards. He cared about people. And that's exactly how he approached his unexpected friendship with a YouTube creator who dreamed of racing, but had no idea where to start. Biffle saw something in Mitchell that others missed, not just talent, but heart. And he was willing to bet everything on it. They met in the chaos of disaster relief. Both Mitchell and Biffle owned helicopters. Both felt compelled to help after Helene destroyed lives across the Carolinas. Flying supply runs together created an instant bond. They discovered they were basically the same person in different bodies. Helicopters, Crown Victoria police cars, a passion for speed, and an obsession with helping others. What started as relief missions turned into something neither expected. They spent every single month together for the next year and a half. Biffle appeared in Mitchell's videos, the NASCAR legend cracking jokes and doing burnouts like he'd been a YouTuber his whole life. Mitchell later admitted Biffle wanted to be a content creator, but just didn't realize it until he was 54. Their families grew close too. Christina, Biffle's wife, became a regular presence in videos, always smiling, always making everyone feel welcome. The kids, Emma and Ryder, brought joy to every gathering. They even had a running Christmas tradition, raising the gift price by $10,000 each year. Mitchell had bought Biffle 2 baby donkeys and a custom RC plane. Biffle was bringing racing pigeons worth a fortune, but that exchange would never happen. When Mitchell first mentioned wanting to race in the Daytona 500, most people would have laughed. A YouTuber with zero oval racing experience competing in NASCAR's crown jewel? Impossible. But Biffle didn't laugh. He laid out a plan, ARCA first. Learn the fundamentals, get comfortable with stock cars, understand how superspeedways work. Then trucks, then Xfinity, Then, maybe, Cup Series. It wasn't a shortcut, it was a roadmap built on respect for the sport. Biffle wasn't going to let his friend embarrass himself or waste the opportunity. February 2025 arrived, and Mitchell made his ARCA debut at Daytona. It ended in a multi-car wreck after just 17 laps, a 30th place finish that could have crushed a rookie's confidence. But Biffle was there in the garage, calm and reassuring. Keep learning, stay patient. This is part of the process. Talladega came next, and Mitchell finished 10th despite early engine troubles. Then Charlotte, where he posted a career-best 9th place. Bristol followed in September. Through every race, every practice session, every moment of doubt, Biffle was there. Coaching, encouraging, believing when Mitchell couldn't believe in himself. The partnership was working. The dream was becoming real. When Mitchell rolled into Daytona International Speedway in January 2026, his car carried a message that said everything. Be like Biff, plastered across the rear bumper, a tribute visible to everyone in the garage and everyone watching at home. He wasn't just testing a race car. He was making a promise. The 2026 schedule expanded to roughly 5 races: Daytona, Talladega, Kansas, Michigan, and more to be announced. Mitchell told Sirius XM NASCAR Radio he was prepared to complete the mission they'd started together. The Daytona 500 still sat at the end of that long road, but he understood now it wasn't about rushing there. It was about earning it the right way. At the memorial service in Charlotte, Mitchell stood before hundreds and asked a simple question: "Who here is proud of Greg Biffle?" The applause was deafening. Then he explained what "be like Biff" actually meant: using your heart to make the world better, being generous whenever possible, helping people when they're down. That's the legacy. That's what Mitchell carries forward every time he straps into that race car, knowing Biffle is watching from somewhere beyond the checkered flag. Mitchell spent the weeks after December 18th in a fog. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The grief hit different than anything he'd experienced. He posted tribute videos, attended memorials, but inside, he was drowning. And the thought of returning to racing felt impossible. He admitted it openly in a YouTube video a month later. The honesty was raw, painful to watch. For those weeks after the crash, he didn't want to step foot in a NASCAR garage ever again. Racing felt wrong without Biffle. The dream they'd built together seemed meaningless if they couldn't finish it as a team. His crew didn't push. His sponsors stayed quiet. Everyone understood this wasn't about contracts or content. It was about grief that couldn't be rushed. But slowly, a question kept surfacing in Mitchell's mind. What would Biff want? He knew the answer before he even finished asking. Biffle would have told him to get back in the car, to honor their plan, to prove that the year and a half they spent together meant something bigger than tragedy. So Mitchell made a decision that terrified him. He was going back to Daytona for the 2026 preseason test. Mitchell didn't just lose a mentor in Biffle. He lost a partner in the vision they'd built together around racing and community. But that vision didn't die. Just weeks after the tragedy, Mitchell announced he'd acquired a 50% stake in Bradenton Motorsports Park, the drag strip sitting right next to his Freedom Factory oval track. The Freedom Factory itself is Mitchell's proudest achievement outside YouTube. He bought the abandoned DeSoto Speedway in 2019, a forgotten 3/8-mile oval that hadn't seen a race in years. He poured every dollar he had into renovations, transforming it into a hub for grassroots racing. Events like Cleetus and Cars draw thousands of fans who want to experience racing without corporate polish, just pure automotive passion. Now with Bradenton under his ownership alongside Victor Alvarez, Mitchell controls over 100 acres of racing property. The plan is ambitious: better facilities, more events, a permanent home for car culture. Biffle had been part of those discussions, offering advice on managing tracks and building sustainable racing operations. His influence lives on in every upgrade, every event, every burnout contest that brings the community together. Mitchell's building something that'll outlast them all. Garrett Mitchell stands at a crossroads few could imagine navigating. The man who helped launch his racing career is gone, but the dream they built together refuses to die. Every lap at Daytona, every practice session, every moment he questions whether he belongs in that garage, he hears Biffle's voice reminding him why they started this journey. The path to the Daytona 500 hasn't changed. ARCA leads to trucks, trucks lead to Xfinity, and maybe, just maybe, he'll earn that shot at NASCAR's biggest race. But it's not about speed anymore. It's about honoring a friendship that changed everything. It's about proving that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story. Mitchell ends every video now the same way. Thanks for watching. Do it for Dale and be like Biff. Those words aren't just a catchphrase. They're a commitment to living the way Biffle lived, fearlessly, generously, always helping the next person up the ladder. The racing world lost a champion on December 18, 2024. But they gained something else, a reminder that legends never truly leave us. They live on in the people they inspired to keep pushing forward, no matter how impossible the road ahead seems.